14 minutes after 8 o'clock, and it's time to go to film school again. Our good friend, film study professor Joe Fortunato, joining us live this morning here on 93.5, 1590 WAKR. And Joe, love the movie we're doing today, but before you jump into the movie, how about our, quote, record crowd from last Saturday as we took film school on the road at Jilly's? You had an excellent presentation of Die Hard, but the crowd was pretty darn big, the largest we've had yet.
Yeah, I was so excited. And good morning, everybody, and welcome. We had a wonderful crowd last Saturday, and want to thank everybody who joined us down there. I know because a number of people came up to me afterwards who are listeners of this weekly segment and said, hey, I listen every week. This is the first time I've come down to see it live. They really enjoyed themselves, looking forward to more. So it was really nice to meet some of our listeners as well as deliver on hopefully what we promised. And I feel like they had a great time, and it was great to see those folks.
It certainly was. And Joe, you were terrific as always, man, doing the film school. Okay, so let's go back to really something that began in the 60s, and then we had a movie that took it to a next level. Take it from there, my friend.
Well, today we're going to look back at Star Trek the Motion Picture from 1979, released December 8, 1979, so right around this time. Directed by Robert Wise, it was written by Gene Roddenberry, Harold Livingston, and Alan Dean Foster, who's a fairly famous sci-fi writer. It stars, of course, the whole original cast of Star Trek: William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, James Doohan, George Takei, Walter Koenig, Nichelle Nichols. And then newcomers to this one, Stephen Collins and Persis Khambatta. It had 3 Oscar nominations, as you might expect, all for, well, not all, art direction and visual effects, but original score by Jerry Goldsmith, which has kind of become a legendary score and used now throughout the Star Trek universe. It was very successful. It grossed $12 million its opening weekend, which everyone goes, what? That's not much. Well, at the time, that was the biggest opening weekend in history, breaking Jaws 2, which had done it the earlier year. It was the first film to gross over 100 million in its opening, or I'm sorry, 10 million. I know these numbers. People who understand movies now realize how ridiculously low these numbers are compared to today. Yeah. Today, and a blockbuster's expected to have $100 million weekend. Anyway, it was a very successful. Now, a lot of people might not know the name Robert Wise. I kind of feel like he's sort of one of those very successful directors that people just don't know, like Hitchcock. I'm not putting him on that plane, but apart from this film, he did a number of great films, including Sound of Music and West Side Story, which everybody loves. He was also the editor on Citizen Kane. So a pretty good director on board for this one. Now, where there had been past films spun off from television series, this is really the first high-level, big-budget feature film adapted from a television series. And it's sort of generally credited with establishing that trend of reviving or remaking television series as theatrical features. Now, this also is a film that's sort of a little bit maligned. It's always been a little bit criticized. William Shatner, when he saw the completed film for the first time, was struck by sort of what he called the overall sluggishness of the film and was convinced that the Star Trek franchise died right then and there. He said, well, that's it. We gave it our best shot. It wasn't good, and it'll never happen again. Of course, 15 years later, he added, well, that shows you what I know, because it reopened the whole Star Trek universe for multiple series and multiple films and so on. This film actually was originally planned to be a TV series called Star Trek Phase 2. Then production switched from a TV series to a big budget film, partly on the popularity of Star Wars, because once Star Wars came out, Paramount Studios wanted to develop a sci-fi movie franchise, akin to that. And it was pointed out that, hey, you already have one in Star Trek. And so they kind of said, yeah, we kind of do. And so they retooled it from a TV series plan to a movie plan. And then, that's kind of the rest is history, as they say. In fact, some of the derogatory nicknames for the film over the years, Star Trek the Motion Sickness, Star Trek the Emotionless Picture, and so on and so forth. Now, I think I was the sweet spot as a kid when I saw this, so I really enjoyed it. And I was not a Trek fan. I was sort of knew a little bit. I mean, I knew who it was, knew what it was, but this sort of got me more into Star Trek. So I think it served its job there. And I've seen it, about a year ago, and I enjoy it more than its reputation. And I think, generally speaking, its reputation has improved over the years.
Joe, when you go back to these movies, the one that I remember of getting everyone back together was The Wrath of Khan, when they brought Ricardo Montalban back. But this one here, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the cast and it's the old favorites getting back. Did they have a tough time at all getting everybody back together, or were they chomping at the bit to do this again?
Well, in particular, Leonard Nimoy was not going to be on board. There's a little bit of a story behind that. He was dissatisfied with unpaid royalties from the Star Trek TV show and didn't want to reprise his role. He's sort of, if you know Star Trek lore, Leonard Nimoy's life, he's always had especially early on, he had a little bit of an ambivalence toward the role of Spock because it sort of typecast him. But anyway, he was left out of the original screenplay. And then Robert Wise's daughter, the director's daughter, said, hey, this is not going to be Star Trek without Spock. So Robert Wise sent Jeffrey Katzenberger, who was then a Paramount top brass, to New York City to meet with Nimoy. Katzenberg gave Nimoy a check to make up for his lost royalties, and the actor attended a press conference for the film with the rest of the returning cast, and the rest is history. He was on board, and he has, he's passed away, of course, but in later years, he came to embrace the character a little bit more. But now one thing about there was some worry that the cast had aged, and this is only kind of 10 years now. It's sort of funny to think about that now when they were doing it for 30 or 40 years after. So there was special lighting and camera tricks used to hide the cast aging. William Shatner went on a near starvation diet and sort of famously wore I don't know a corset, I guess you would call it. And even this is sort of funny. Even they had originally saved the molded cast to make Spock's ears from the TV show, but as he got older, Leonard Nimoy's ears had grown in the decades since, and so they had to make new molds for his new ears.
I love it. All right, Star Trek, the motion picture today. Anything else you wanted to present to us, Joe?
Well, I want to say this delicately because it's a little bit adult, but it's a funny story. For those who know the film or whatever, Persis Khambatta's character is a Deltan, and they say in the film that or explain that a Deltan has to take an oath of celibacy when they come on board for duty because they emit pheromones that arouse. They're very sexual species, this alien species. So that's set up in the film. There was a scene that followed that where Commander Sulu, let me see how to say this, could not stand up from his desk because he was excited to meet the Deltan, and that didn't make it into the film, but it was. I think it was put into some later extended cuts. So Sulu was excited to meet the alien Deltan species.
Love it. The motion picture Star Trek, today's film school. And, of course, you can check that out with more of it with Joe Fortunato, WAKR.net, and our Facebook page. Joe, as always, my friend, thanks for joining us. Really enjoyed last Saturday. Can't wait to do more of that coming up in 2025. Thanks, Joe. Always appreciate the time, man.
I appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing everybody.
Hey,